So, you've probably heard serotonin called the brain's happy chemical, right? Well, what if I told you that's just a tiny piece of a much bigger, much weirder story? We're going to dive deep into the brain to see how serotonin really works. And trust me, it's way more fascinating than you think.
All right, let's start with a puzzle. Your brain has billions and billions of neurons, but the special cells that actually make serotonin, they make up less than 1/1,000,000th of the total. So how on earth can such a tiny, tiny group of cells have this massive impact on pretty much everything, from your mood to your sleep?
Well, the answer is kinda simple, but it changes everything. Turns out, these serotonin neurons don't really control things directly. They're not just flipping switches on and off. Instead, they do something much more subtle. They modulate. And that gets us to our first big idea. We need to think of serotonin as the brain's master modulator. So forget the idea of a little light switch for happiness. A much better analogy, it's like a global volume knob for your entire neural orchestra.
So what does modulation actually mean here? The research calls it a tonic modulatory influence. You can think of it like a constant background hum that's always on, fine-tuning what other brain circuits are doing. What's wild is that serotonin isn't technically essential for any one thing, like you can still see and hear without it, but what it does is adjust the quality and the intensity of all those signals. It turns the volume up or down.
Okay, so if serotonin is this system-wide volume knob, where is all this power coming from? Let's zoom in and find its surprisingly small command center.
Let's just let this number sink in again. Out of all the billions of neurons in your central nervous system, only about 1 in a million is a serotonin neuron. I mean, we are talking about an incredibly rare and super specialized type of cell here.
And this is where they all live. What you're seeing here is an image from the research that shows the raphe nuclei. These are just a few small clusters buried deep in your brainstem. Every single bit of serotonin in your brain and spinal cord starts its journey right here.
And here's the crucial part. From this ridiculously small and centralized little hub, something absolutely massive grows. This is where the scale of the system just becomes mind-boggling. Because that little command center gives rise to what researchers have called the single most expansive neurochemical network in the entire brain. And believe me, that is not an exaggeration. The researchers we're looking at here literally called it the most expansive and complex system of its kind. To put it simply, no other chemical system in your brain covers as much ground, period.
And this image just shows you exactly what they mean. Look at this. All those little black lines, those are serotonin fibers, weaving this dense web all through the visual part of a monkey's brain. From that tiny little spot in the brainstem, these fibers just reach out and touch nearly every single part of the brain.
The scale is it's staggering. Get this. A single serotonin neuron can branch out and create up to 500,000 different connection points in the cortex. That's one cell influencing a huge local neighborhood. And that's how this tiny 1 in a million population gets its incredible global reach.
Okay, so we've got a tiny origin and a massive network. But how does the message actually get out? Well, this leads to another really cool idea. Serotonin often behaves like a hormone, sending out a global signal inside the brain itself.
You know, the best way to think about it is that a normal neuron talks to one other neuron. It's like a private phone call. Serotonin can do that, sure, but its real power is that it also broadcasts its signal to a whole neighborhood of cells all at once. So let's break that down. Think of it as two different modes. First, there's the wired connection. That's your standard, precise point-to-point synapse. But the thing that makes serotonin so powerful is its Wi-Fi signal. This is where it just releases serotonin into the local area with no direct connection. This signal spreads out slowly, affecting lots of cells nearby, kind of like a hormone does. This is the secret sauce. This is the physical mechanism behind that volume knob effect we were talking about.
Now, to wrap all this up, the paper ends with this really thought-provoking idea. The authors suggest that there might actually be two totally separate serotonin systems living side by side in our brains, an ancient one and a much newer one.
They call them type I and type 2. The ancient type 1 system, which you see a lot in lower vertebrates, uses these really fine, slow axons to create that diffusey, broadcasting Wi-Fi network. But in higher vertebrates like us, they started seeing signs of a modern type 2 system. This one uses thicker, insulated axons. Think of them like fiber optic cables, to send signals that are way faster and much more precise.
So what this really points to is a potential evolutionary shift. It's like we still have that ancient, slow, global modulator,
But our brains might also be building a faster, more targeted way to use serotonin. And that leaves us with this huge question. Are we literally watching the brain evolve a new, more efficient way to talk to itself? I mean, that completely reframes how we ought to think about this amazing molecule.